Matthew chapter 28, verse 18 and 19. And Jesus came and spake unto them, saying, all power is given unto me in heaven and in earth. Go ye therefore and teach all nations. Go ye therefore and teach all nations. Notice the term authority, which is similar to the use of the word kingdom, which we have explored before now as the word basileia. Okay, basileia. And he says in heaven and in earth. The word en uranios kai epaites. That's the Greek. And I will tell you what that means in a bit. When he says in the heaven and in earth, he uses the word in, I-N, and in the earth, which means upon or at the earth. Upon or at the earth. So he makes one primary word and the other one the effect of the primary word. That is heaven's effect in the earth. That is basically what he is saying. Heaven's effect in the earth. So one is primary and one is the effect of the other. That is, heaven's effect is seen on the earth. All authority is given to me in heaven and in earth. It means that is what is of heaven and will be seen in the earth. What is of heaven that will be seen in the earth. Now, I have told you before that that phrase has to do with man. And uranios kai epaites, upon and in the earth. So he is saying, I have authority that is for the earth. Jesus is saying, I have authority that is for the earth. So my authority is heavenly and is for the earth. My authority is heavenly and is for the earth. Then he now says, go ye, which is important. Make disciples of every nation. Go ye, make disciples of every nation. Before we get to that, we want to examine that phrase again in the words of Jesus. Heaven and earth, where he mentions the use of authority. Now when you say earth, which is the Greek word gay, not gay as in G-A-Y, gay as in G-E. The word earth is the word gay. It deals with ethnic. Okay, it deals with either the soil, the land, the territory, or the inhabitants. The word gay, G-E, deals with either the soil, the land, the territory, or the inhabitants. Now, you and I will know that Jesus will definitely be referring to the inhabitants in what he is talking about here, the inhabitants. So, notice the different usages of the word earth here, which is the word gay. All right, it's either making reference to the soil, the land, the territory, or the inhabitants. And in this context, Jesus is making reference here, the word gay, as to the inhabitants. Matthew chapter 5, verse number 13. Please pay attention. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt have lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men. Where he talks about the salt of the earth, you and I know he is not saying that when you appear on the soil gets salty. We know that one basically. Basically, it is seen amongst men. The salt of the earth has to do with amongst men. So the earth gay is not dealing with land or soil or territory. It's dealing with men, amongst men. Again, this is a statement of Jesus, a statement of the resurrection. It's a post-resurrection reality. We said it before, and these are statements of his resurrection. So, in the resurrection, those who believe are called the salt of the earth. In the resurrection of Jesus, those who believe are called the salt of the earth. Then he talks about, let your light shine before men. let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. So he uses earth there as men. Then in Matthew chapter 16, remember the discussion with Peter. The discourse Jesus had with Peter and the rest. Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? And Peter says, well, after all the jamboree, Peter said, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus now said, upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Look at that, Matthew chapter 16 verse 18. Now pay attention particularly to verse 18. And I say also unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Now this is it. Whatsoever things you bind on earth is bound in heaven. Take note of that phrase. Whatsoever things you bind on earth is bound in heaven. Now why did he say that? It's like a reverse statement. I give you authority which is heavenly. So whatsoever you bind on earth is from heaven. Whatsoever you bind on earth is from heaven. That's basically what he is saying. He is defining the authority as spiritual. Jesus is defining that authority as spiritual. He emerges two things together in the believer. That in the believer will be heaven and earth. In the believer will be heaven and earth. So heaven will be who the believer is. Heaven will be who the believer is. Number two, where the believer is. And number three, what the believer has. Heaven will be who the believer is, what the believer has, and where the believer is. And the earth will be the manifestation or the demonstration of that. The earth will be the manifestation or the demonstration of that reality called heaven, where the believer is, who the believer is, and what the believer has. So the earth is the manifestation, or the earth is the demonstration of that reality. So when he says, I give you the keys of heaven, whatever you bind in the earth, he is basically talking about the same place. Whatever you bind in the earth, he's not talking about two different locations. He's talking about the same place. Remember, heaven and earth in the believer. So heaven and earth there will be amongst men. Heaven and earth in that context will be amongst men. Heaven will be where the believer is found. Heaven will be where the believer is seated. Heaven will be what the believer has. Where the believer is found, where the believer is seated, and what the believer has. The earth will be what it does amongst men. The earth will be what the believer does amongst men. The heaven is where the believer is found, where the believer is seated, and what the believer has. The earth will be what it does amongst men. Please pay attention. So it's not a location issue when he says heaven and earth. You know, there's an Old Testament phrase, and we will get to it as well. So in Matthew chapter 18 verse 18, where he says, verily I say unto you, whatsoever you shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever you shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. He is talking to the church, and we will look at that statement a little more. But again, it's basically the same thing. Whatever you bind on earth is bound in heaven, which is the man who did that. The man doing the binding on earth is found in heaven. The man that is doing the binding on earth is found in heaven. So heaven there will be used for Uranios in the Greek, non-material or non-earthly or immaterial. That which is not tangible, that which is not earthly, and that which is not material. It's like using opposites in the same location. Earth, heaven, in the same place. Earth, heaven, in the same place. In other words, the spiritual and the non-spiritual, as it were. The spiritual and the non-spiritual, as it were. Heaven and earth. So all authority is given to me in heaven and earth will mean heavenly amongst men. Heavenly amongst men. Earthly amongst men. So heaven towards the earth, or heaven towards man. Heaven towards the earth, or heaven towards man. And everything is within man. Everything. Heaven, earth, they're all within man. So keep that somewhere, because it will come in handy in a bit. Glory to God.